13th, 2021. Is it the 13th, really? Gosh. 2021 BAR Large Virtual Meeting. My name is Jay White. I'm the acting chairman. Other board members present this afternoon are James Metters, Leon Scott, Luda Subchuk, and our brand new member of the board, John Robinson. City staff present are Lawrence Courtney and Linda Bennett. The order of the meeting will be as follows. There'll be an introduction and overview of the project by city staff to the board and for the public. The applicant presentation follows this, and it's usually 10 minutes. You can get a little bit more time if you ask me at the outset of your presentations, but clarity and concision is helpful. Any questions of the applicant that the board might have will be asked at the conclusion of that presentation. Any and all presenters clearly state your name for the record. And then any persons affiliated with the project, whether you're the owner, developer, designer, consultant, etc., you should speak during this portion rather than during public comment. After the applicant presentation is concluded, there'll be an equivalent amount of time provided for public comment. The applicant during this period does not respond to comments made during by the public. And then for each member of the public who may speak, then please clearly state your name for the record. This will be followed by city staff comments and a recommendation on the application. This is followed by a 5-minute period of time for an applicant response or clarification to either public comment or the city staff comments and recommendations. This will be followed by a board discussion and a vote. During this period, the applicants and the public have really no opportunity to comment. However, if the applicant needs to correct inaccurate information, then please ask to be recognized by me as the acting chair, and then you can do so. None of the items on our short agenda tonight have been deferred. Please remember to turn off all cell phones or devices and mute your audio if you're playing video games while waiting. And then please remember to keep your comments limited to architecture only. That is the jurisdiction, that's the purview of this board. We can't really do anything about comments related to zoning, traffic, parking, noise, and other livability related matters. All right, with that, Mr. Courtney. Let me go through the meeting protocol since we've been doing Zoom meetings for a while, but just as a refresher, staff is controlling the slideshow presentation, includes everything that was submitted by the applicant by the deadline. And then anyone who is speaking, please remember, give your name for the record, just for clarity. The video and microphone features have been disabled for all attendees. Attendees, not board members or staff, will only be given the capabilities to speak when they're called on during public comment period. The chat and QA functions have been disabled for everyone. And then during the period for public comment, the applicants and all team members and the public have been required to register, indicate the project they wish to comment on, and submit any documents in advance of the meeting. Just as in an in-person meeting, all applications heard today are part of a public meeting format. If you've registered and will speak during the public comment portion of the meeting, you will need to state your name and address for the record. I'm not sure we say that enough. We should probably add that in a few other places. Those members of the public that have registered will be called in order by project. Members of the public that speak are encouraged to remain at the meeting for the completion of the item that they've commented on. And staff will call on registered members of the public to speak for each project. Unregistered members of the public who raise their hand will not be called on. Board members will be polled by the chair for comments and for their vote on a motion. Each member, when voting, please respond yay in favor or nay not in favor. I will reread the motion verbatim, and the board member making the motion should correct me if it's not been reread correctly. If a board member needs to recuse, they will be temporarily removed from the meeting and placed back in the meeting at the start of the next agenda item. If the board needs to go into executive session, we will call a separate conference line, and all video and audio on Zoom will be temporarily turned off until we're ready to return to the regular meeting. Staff will issue meeting results, including staff comments and the board motion, to the applicant following the meeting, and results will also be posted on the city website. All right, and as a reminder, these proceedings are being recorded via Zoom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Agenda item 1 is 270 King Street or 71 Wentworth Street. The applicant is requesting approval of actually mock-ups of new window in an existing opening and HVAC screening. This is a category 2 building in no distinct neighborhoods, circa 1871-72 in the old and historic district. This is an area view of the site on the corner of Wentworth and King, the southeast corner of Wentworth and King. Wentworth here, running east-west generally, and King north-south here. This is the King Street facade as it currently exists. This is a view from the intersection of King and Wentworth looking northwest. This is looking south on King. The Masonic Hall is immediately on your left. This is looking north on King. The Masonic Hall is behind you on your right, I think. Previous board motion was deferral of mock-up with staff and board comments. That was on November 12th of last year, with board comments being one board member likes the dark window frames as proposed, likes the contrast, and they were at that time fine with the material as well, and noted that it is located on the second floor so you can't touch it, and that the caulk should exactly match the brownish or grayish color in case stucco can't cover it. Staff and board should look at how the stucco meets the window and how the colors go together. In terms of the depth of the window, they could imagine another inch of stucco and thought that the depth was being accurately shown, and so that they didn't think that it needed to be set any deeper in the wall. Another board member remarked that applicant had done a really good job of capturing the original look. Another board members noted that it is important to have a completed mock-up to review, and was not comfortable giving approval on an uncompleted mock-up. And board members said that they were in agreement with comments thus far, fine with the window material being GFRC, but again, really hard to give it approval right now, not seeing how the whole thing will be finished. Staff comments from that time were that it is unclear as to what color the new GFRC window frames will or should be. Historic photos appear to show both light and dark variations. Also, the windows need to be inset into the walls to match the originals as closely as they can be. ascertained from the historic photographs. It was noted that the jam detail D1 on sheet A616 shows no sealant in between the stucco and window frame. Is this realistic? If used, the color of the sealant around the windows should match the adjacent stucco color. Also, to achieve an accurate representation of the window in the opening, the stucco needs to be completed to wrap at the jambs and window perimeter. It is unclear from the details how this extra thickness will affect the edges of the windows. A discussion with the applicant at that time indicated that the intent is for the stucco to be returned to the edge of the GFRC frame, covering up the sealant. Also, it appears that the HVAC rooftop units will be visible from King Street and will need to have screening reviewed by the board or staff. Also, staff has no issues with the use of GFRC and representation of the window itself. It simply needs to be shown in a completely finished opening. And with that, staff's recommendation at that time was deferral of mock-up with staff and board comments. So now we go to the applicant's presentation. Would you please unmute Mr. Hertdorfer, Ms. Bennett?
He can unmute himself.
Yeah, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Kevin Hertdorfer, architect for the client. Lawrence, if you don't mind just scrolling through these generally until we get to the pictures. I think you guys have all seen this building enough to know the context and the history, and there's historic photographs and the elevations that have been proposed. It's been through the board before, and I'm assuming that you've been down to the site to take a look at it in person as well. What's not part of the submittal is actually pictures of the HVAC screen, because that got put up post submission, but there is, okay, you can stop there, that'd be great. There is a plywood mock-up panel that's in place, and it, just quickly to describe that, I mean, it is slightly further towards King Street. It's no higher than what is existing. We hope to be working with staff just on a screening material that is acceptable, but wanted to at least get you to view it and be able to see it in person. It's obviously as compact as we can make it, and the reason it has to get pulled forward is because there's a hip condition where the roof raises higher, so we can't actually push it any further back on the roof. And we didn't want to make it wider because that would actually make it taller on the roof. So we ended up just keeping the platform as is and extending it slightly towards King Street. So, and then the other piece of this is obviously the windows. The picture on the left is what was previously submitted that shows the exposed brick around the window. And then on the right, obviously the finished stucco condition and how it returns back into the GFRC all around, and then painted it with the proposed color as well in that one panel. Next page. Just
a slightly off-center view looking at both sides and how the GFRC panel sits against the stucco. The caulk joint is concealed behind that stucco. Next page. Looking up from actually this is standing on a lift, so you're at about 25 feet floating above the sidewalk at this point, looking up a little closer in detail at how the stucco returns into the GFRC. Next page. And then a few other close-ups. You know, there's a little touch-up work that needs to get done on that right middle knuckle on the left image where the stucco is not completely sanded off. But other than that, you know, they finished it out well within the time constraints of having the lift on site. The other item, just from honestly, I'm not sure if this is part of the BAR purview for this submittal, but the color of the horizontal GFRC member that sits between the windows, we are proposing to actually paint it the same color as the window. Because when you look at the historic photographs, what we are proposing as a GFRC elements actually go from the sill up to the head condition. And you have that tracery at the top, but everything between that is window. And so we wanted to honor that representation and view it as a tall vertical opening, tall columns with the GFRC, and then the window and that horizontal member would be painted the same color to make that recess behind the tracery. Next page. Next page. And just the historic photograph on the left, obviously, and what we're proposing on the right. And so the only thing that's painted to what we are looking to propose for the color palette is the window, the tracery around the window, and that one stucco panel between the columns. Thank you.
Okay, any board questions? Well, hearing none, is there any public comment?
Yes, Jay, we've got, excuse me, Justin Schwebler from Historic Charleston.
Okay.
And I'm going to allow him to speak.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
We'd like to continue our support for this proposal. We do still have concerns over the final finish of the GFRC, but the completed mock-up has proven that the applicants have created a complementary design to the historic fenestration, and we recommend approval of the new mock-up window. Thank you.
Okay. Any further public comment?
No further public comment.
Okay, staff comments, recommendation.
Okay. When the mock-up is now complete and is acceptable. The color of the window frames is shown alternatively as light and dark in various historic photos. If the color cannot be ascertained by microscopic analysis, staff requests that the board weigh in on which tonal range it believes to be more appropriate, and a specific color needs to be proposed by the applicant. A representation of the rooftop HVAC screening needs to be provided. And with that, staff recommends approval of window mock-up with staff and board comments, and staff to work with applicant on rooftop HVAC screening and a specific window frame color.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gordy. Any applicant clarification?
Yeah, I guess just to clarify that what is shown in the mock-up and on these slides is what we're proposing for the color of the GFRC and the windows and that stucco panel. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. All right. Board discussion.
This is Leon Scott. I think that looks fantastic. I think the mock-up I think they did a really good job on the mock-up. So I'm in agreement with staff comment.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
I also think that the work was done to very high level, fine with the contrasting colors proposed by the applicant, and so I would support.
Jay, this is James. Kevin, the stucco on the outside, the face of the wall, you can see where the stucco joint is made. And I think a greater effort has to be put into making sure that you can't see where the old and new stucco are meeting. There's just a vertical line that goes, it just tracks around the whole, the whole system. The stucco work itself looks fine. The older stucco work looks great. The window looks great. The contrasting colors to me look great. I don't know if they're what their relationship is to original colors, but trying to eliminate that line which marks the new stucco and the old stucco can be done. It may mean that you have to go to different lifts, but you can see it. It just traces all the way around. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, Jay. And then one more thing. I got. I don't have any idea about the HVAC stand. I tried this. I didn't see it. And if it was there, I'm sorry. I just didn't see it.
This is Lyoda Sobchuk. I think the applicant had fulfilled the obligation, so to say, with this mock-up. It looks really good. And all the maybe intricacy with connecting stucco and edges is could be in work, but other than that, I think it's done well, and color is really looking good on this building. So I will support the staff recommendation for the approval.
Great, and I do as well. I think the issue of the color is that if you're going to restore the building's historic color palette, you have to do it all or none. And
Exactly.
The historic color that was on the historic windows can't be studied microscopically because those windows are gone. So, but this color is completely appropriate in a general sense, and I think that the outcome is actually much better than I suspected. I've always been sort of suspicious of GFRC, but this seems to be a good installation. So I agree with staff's recommendation, and I agree with the board comments. Is there a motion?
Jay, I'd move for approval of the mock-up with staff and board comments. And I'm comfortable with the screening being decided at the staff level unless the staff can't work that out and it needs to come back to the board.
Okay. So what I've got is a motion for approval of mock-up with staff and board comments. HVA screening to be reviewed by staff.
Correct.
Right.
This is Lyoda Sobchuk. I will second that.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion made and seconded. Mr. Scott, how do you vote?
Yay in favor.
All right. Mr. Robinson.
Yay in favor.
All right. Ms. Sobchuk.
Yay in favor.
Mr. Metters.
Yay in favor.
And I vote likewise. The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah. And item 2 on the agenda is the Um, New construction for a student housing residential block behind historic structures at 363, 367, and 369 King Street. The request formally is for conceptual approval for new construction of a student housing development behind existing historic structures to be rehabilitated. These are category 3 and 4 buildings on King Street in no particular neighborhood, circa 1892 and circa 1892 and pre-1884 in the old and historic district. Context photos show that King Street runs generally north and south here, and Calhoun generally east-west here. The Francis Marion Hotel is right here. Francis Marion Square begins right over here. There is a large student housing complex right here and here behind this proposed development. This is the site looking north on King Street. This is 363, 367, and 369, respectively. This is looking southwest. This is 369, the hyphen, 367, and 363, King Street. This again is looking west from King Street, 363, 367, hyphen, and 369. Francis Marion Hotel in the background there. This is looking from Calhoun and King, looking southwest. The buildings in question along King are right around here. And these are 1973 survey cards showing 363 King at that time, 367 and 369 in the hyphen at that point in time. And with that, we'll go to the previous motion, which was from the 9th of December of last year. It was a motion for conceptual approval of historic buildings, including the hyphen with staff comments, but deferral for the new building for mass and height, including board comments regarding the 5 1/2 stories. Board comments included, starting with historic structures, and these are somewhat all blurred together, but I think it's worth noting that really all we're discussing this evening is the new building. Some of these comments are related to the old, but they're all mixed together, so I'll just read them as they are. Starting with historic structures, 363 King is one of the most significant Romanesque facades on King Street. They appreciate the research done so far on 363 King, but a lot more research needs to be done prior to the restoration, especially in primary sources. Pay attention to physical evidence on the building, patterns of ghosting, material evidences, use of careful selective demolition. Right now, the facade is fairly conjectural. They don't have any problem with the hyphen. New building has a nicely composed facade. The ordinance as adopted says architectural merit means the project reflects exemplary architectural and urban design, utilizes the highest level of materials and finishes, and contributes to the public realm. In short, this board member did not think that the proposal does that. It's nice that the 7th story is set back almost as if it is a 6 1/2 story proposal as a result, but viewed from Marion Square, the massing of this proposal blends in with the massing of the campus center of apartments and really disturbs the proportion of that entrance to the King Street corridor. They thought that this proposal should be knocked down to 5 1/2 stories to further limit the massing from the east, and particularly Marion Square. Not ready for approval. They thought that it should be denied for heights so that it is limited to 5 1/2 stories, and the remainder of the proposal be deferred. Other board member noted historic structures, further research on materials for columns on 363 King is needed, but on the right path. Okay with hyphen, could be more glassy and contemporary. New building, they would echo prior board comments. Visibility is okay if done right. Looks really heavy and imposing. Penthouse is nicely designed with good materials, but disassociates itself from the main structure. Should be limited to 5 1/2 stories, and more masses more studies should be done of massing. It's just not ready yet. The board member said mixed on the hyphen, can't vote for the additional story, and considered reduction in height. went out to Marion Square, and project will be visible, overwhelming at 7 stories. And a last board member indicated that they were in agreement with prior board comments and would have a difficult time with additional height. The height is a real challenge. Previous staff comments. It was noted that generally this project does a very good job of preserving, restoring, renovating, rehabilitating, or remodeling the existing historic structures while providing a minimally visible, differential, but interesting new residential block to the rear. Applicant is requesting an additional floor based on architectural merit and context, which will need to be addressed by the board. There are comments related to the historic structures which are not pertinent at this time, so I will be skipping those. The new residential block. The front of this portion of the building is a minimum of 50 feet from the building facades on King Street, and applicant has gone to lengths to ensure that it will have little, if any, impact on King Street. While portions of this front facade will only be seen in very small parts from King Street, the facade is well composed, with the top 2 floors having well articulated, recessed, and well spaced stacked windows separated by spandrel panels over the unseen bottom floors with simple punched openings. Care needs to be taken in the detailing of these spandrel panels to avoid how they now read on drawings as heavy lines. These panel joints need to be visually minimized, and the mint color may be a little too bold. Staff suggests finding a more subtle color for these panels. The cornice of this proportion should be simplified. It should be noted that GFRP is proposed for this cornice, and while this is an appropriate location for its use, samples will need to be reviewed by the board of the actual material to be used. The penthouse level is nicely designed with a shed roof, amenities structured, coupled with elevator overrides set well back from the parapet at the east and north, comprising less than half of the roof footprint. This shed roof design and orientation came about from a series of studies to minimize visibility of the penthouse, and while an unusual feature for a rooftop in this area, it works well in this location. It is noted that the penthouse is shown with a green roof. Also, although set back from King Street, lighting at the terrace area will need to be studied carefully to avoid any hot spots in this area. Applicant has provided adequate justification for additional height based on architectural merit and context, and at that point in time, staff's recommendation was conceptual approval with board and staff comments with approval for an additional story as shown based on architectural merit and context. And with that, we go to applicant's presentation. Ms. Bennett, would you please unmute Mr. Ramos?
I think he can unmute himself, but there you go.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Well, the good news is that I'm going to be very quick in my presentation, and we did what we were asked to do by the board last time. We presented a 6.5-story building, and we were told that 5.5 was more appropriate, and that's what we've done. We've removed the floor from the building. Next slide. This is just an image of the previous design, and if you go to the very next slide, you can see the old elevation on the left at 6.5 stories, the new elevation on the right at 5.5 stories. In addition to the change in the height of the building, we have also continued to refine the architecture. We moved away from a shed roof at the top of the building to a flat roof. We've also taken the architectural language from the top of the building and kind of pulled it down all the way to the ground. Next slide. This is where you can see it the most. So again, on the left, we have the previous design, and then on the right, we have the new design. So again, we've removed a story from the building. We have flattened out the roof. I think it was Ms. Subcheck that commented that the building felt a little heavy last time. And so we have tweaked the proportions of the window openings and the fenestration pattern, just to make it what I would say a little skinnier and a little more elegant than the previous design. Next. This is the north elevation. and my comments will be the same. Again, we've removed the floor from the building. We've taken the architecture that we had developed at the top of the building and simply extended it down the facade, and made a really nice, balanced and elegant facade. There is a feature on the roof that you see there on the right. There's an actual fireplace that's going to be on the 6th floor rooftop terrace, and there's an actual chimney there, which provides a nice amenity for the building, and I think it'll provide an attractive feature to the architecture as well. Not only have we reduced the height of the building, you can see we've actually pushed the top floor back a little further than the previous design as well. So we're doing everything that we can to minimize the visibility of the building. Next. This is the south facade, which I do not believe will be visible from the street level. Nonetheless, we have made improvements to that facade as well, as you can see in this image. Next. This is the west facade, which, just like the south, will be entirely hidden. Nonetheless, I think it will be an attractive facade for the building. The new design on the right. Next. These are the floor plans, which are largely unchanged. But you can actually, if you move down and go to what would be the 6th floor, perfect. So this is where there's a big change in the floor plan. On the left, you have the old 6th floor, which was the entire floor plate. On the right, you have our new 6th floor, which is 50% of the floor plate, or I think it's 49.9% of the floor plate. So it is a half story. We've basically pushed it into the southwest corner of the site, trying to get it as far from Marion Square as possible. We have now added a swimming pool to the roof. We lost a lot of our interior amenities, so we are compensating that with a rooftop swimming pool. So I think it'll still be a fantastic place for the students to live. We do have a covered porch on the north side that you see there where the cursor is. And you can also see where that fireplace and chimney is located. Next slide. So this is our rooftop plan. Previously, this would have been the 7th floor plan. So you have the old 7th floor on the left, and now the 7th floor is the roof. I do not think we will need mechanical screening for this project. The preliminary mechanical plan, we were able to get everything in the southwest corner of the site. However, those things tend to evolve, so we will continue to study that to make sure that mechanical equipment is not visible. Next. This is a series of 3D images. This is the existing condition on the left. You can see what would be visible without trees. And the next slide, you can see the new building that has been added. And then this is a comparison of the renderings, the new rendering on top, the old rendering on the bottom. Next. This is from far away in Marion Square. On the left, you can see the existing Campus Center Apartments building. Next. And then you can see our building that gets built in front, which from this vantage point is actually lower than the Campus Center building. Next slide. This is a series of 3D images. This is the existing condition on the left. You can see what would be visible without trees. And the next slide. You can see the new building that has been added. And then this is a comparison of the renderings, the new rendering on top, the old rendering on the bottom. Next. This is from far away in Marion Square. On the left, you can see the existing Campus Center Apartments building. Which from this vantage point is actually lower than the Campus Center building. Next slide. A comparison of the new rendering on top and the old rendering on the bottom. Next. And then there's a little vantage point along Calhoun Street where you'll see just the very top of the building, and you'll see the chimney that pops up. On the bottom, you can see the old rendering where much more of the 6th floor was visible. Next. This is the last slide I'm going to show. This drawing shows an outline of the old building in a heavy dashed line, so you can see the reduction in the both the height and the massing of the building. Issues regarding height, scale, and mass have been addressed by lowering the building by 1 full story. We've positioned the top floor in the southwest corner to make the site, or to make the building as minimally visible as possible. We also pushed the elevators back to get them as far away from the facade as possible. And I think the architectural direction has improved as well. I think it's a building that is appropriately detailed, has a nice proportions and window patterns. So we're really happy with where we're at. And with that, I kindly ask you for conceptual approval of the project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ramos. Any board questions?
Yes, this is James. Steve, I just want to make sure I was looking at the plans today. The top of the 5-story building is 62 feet 2 inches. The top of the 6-story building is 71 feet. I don't mean the elevator shaft, but I think it was labeled 6 stories and 5 stories. So that's about a 9-foot reduction in that structure, right?
That's correct. Yeah, on this drawing, this looks like the top of the parapet is 72 feet.
Top of the parapet is 72. That's what I saw too. But the 5 stories is 62.2, and the 6 stories is 71, right?
The 6 stories is 72.
Well, that's top of parapet, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I guess I'm just having, I'm trying to, we don't have on the previous, there was a top of what I guess was the elevator shaft at 84. And we don't really have a top of elevator shaft on this one on the plan. And I was trying to relate figures, and I thought the figures that would be relatable were, I think on your plans, it said 6 stories, 71 feet, and then it said top of elevator shaft 84, and then it said top of parapet was 72, but top of 5 stories was 62. And I'm just trying to look at the dotted line and relate it.
The drawing that shows it best would be the east elevation. So if you want to go backwards a bunch of slides to the east elevation. So this is the north. If you go back another slide. So this exhibit here has those dimensions to it.
I think this is where I got them.
And Lawrence, could you zoom into those numbers? And just so I'm clear,
yeah. So
that's 5 stories that says 62 feet. You know, that is that's a parapet. The actual floor plate is 3.5 feet below that parapet. So the actual 5th floor that you stand on would be at 58 foot 6 inches. So the parapet creates effectively a railing at that floor.
Okay, any other questions of the applicant? All right, hearing none, let's go on to public comments.
All right, Jay, our first speaker is Aaron Minigan with the Preservation Society.
Okay.
Thank you, Erin Minigan with the Society of Charleston. First, we want to commend the board on their approach to this project at the previous review. The Preservation Society voiced significant concerns about the visibility of the height of the building, given its sensitive location close to King Street and Marion Square, and strongly encouraged the board to exercise their authority to reduce the building by a story. We were very pleased the board agreed and elected to reduce required height, and feel this was the most appropriate decision given the proximity of this project to Charleston's most important historic commercial corridor. Again, we thank the board for their leadership in this case, which we feel has put the project on the right path and presents a positive example of how the design review process results in better, more contextual new development. Next, we would like to thank the architect who has consistently met with our team and responded to our feedback, and we feel has taken the board's direction well. The revised design is much more appropriately scaled for the site and presents significant architectural improvements. Specifically, we feel the new fenestration pattern and separation of the northern bay mass with a hyphen is more reflective of Charleston's architectural character. Though the historic buildings did receive conceptual approval at the previous review, we would reiterate our concerns with the hyphen element and encourage softening the contemporary design. Being right up on King Street and directly adjacent to two historic buildings, we feel it reads a bit severe and would encourage studying incorporating more traditional forms and materials. Thank you.
Okay, Jay, our next speaker is Justin with Historic Charleston.
And this is Justin with the Historic Preservation Society. We would first, I guess, Justin with the Historic Charleston Foundation.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, we would first like to thank the applicants for their diligent work in maintaining transparent and regular communication about the project through their design process. They should also be commended for their response to the comments from the meeting on December 9th of last year. We feel that the applicants have addressed all of our comments and that their new design is a fine example of creating an appropriately scaled, well-appointed structure that will be complementary to the buildings around it on the King Street corridor. We're pleased to recommend conceptual approval of the project at this time. Thank you.
Okay. I think that's it for public comment, is it not?
That's
Linda?
it for public comment, Jay.
Okay, staff comments and recommendation.
All right. The applicant is requesting conceptual approval for new for a new rear student housing building block. Conceptual approval was given for work related to his historic structures in the hyphen on the 9th of December of last year with staff and board comments. Staff comments at this time are the building has been lowered to 5.5 stories per board motion with a flat roof penthouse, and the overall building exterior is better articulated. It's noted again that the cornice is shown as GFRP, which staff believes to be appropriate for this location. All the samples need to be provided for the actual material proposed. This rear building is now very minimally visible from any public right of way. And exterior lighting is to be subdued at the second floor terrace level and at the rooftop penthouse level. And with that, staff's recommendation is for conceptual approval of the new rear student housing block with the previous conceptual approval for work related to the historic structures with previous and current staff and board comments.
Thank you. Any applicant clarification?
Nope.
Okay. Being none, board discussion and a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be willing to make a motion if you're ready for one.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for approval for the request for conceptual approval with staff comments.
Okay, so that's a motion for conceptual approval of new construction with staff comments.
Correct.
This is Leon Scott. I will second.
Okay. We have a motion made and seconded. Mr. Robinson, how do you vote?
I vote aye for approval.
Okay. Ms. Sobczak.
Yay for approval.
Okay. Mr. Scott.
Yay in favor.
Mr. Metters.
Yay in favor.
And I vote yay in favor. The motion carries 5-0. Thanks for listening to the public and board comments last time. It's going to be a great project.
Yeah, agreed. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Very good. And thank you
John,
all
thanks for joining us.
for being here.
Yeah, indeed.
My pleasure to be with you for the inaugural time, and I'll try to do my best not to embarrass